And
And
show the transformation. You know,
right.
you walked in the door, this super ordinary dude, not very interesting. And by the end of it, you know, you can be the dude at the bar with wallets that catch on fire.
I don't really like the way you framed that, but I'm here with Patrice Kelly, our Chief Creative Officer at Snappy Kraken, and Francesca McLinn, our Chief Product Officer. And we are talking about the Visual Insights newsletter. So, Francesca, will you tell me a little bit about the Visual Insights newsletter and why is it one of the most versatile campaigns on our platform?
Absolutely. So it is one of our OG campaigns. You know, we ideated it years ago because we wanted a super engaging, entertaining campaign that an advisor could send to clients, to prospects, and really own the engagement portion of the journey and really resell the value of advice and keep the conversation going with clients and prospects. So it's the most versatile because, you know, as I said, you can send it out to your email lists. You know, we've got, you know, everyone includes multiple emails, and it also goes out on your social media. So you have these really engaging social posts that stand out on the social media feed and keep that portion of it going. And we choose topics that are sometimes financial, but frequently financial adjacent, and really pump up the engagement and the entertainment aspect of it. You know, we really want to subvert the common expectations that folks think about content that they get from their financial advisor.
So, when you talk about wanting to click on things and wanting to consume the information, so Patrice, I'm going to let you talk about this. How does design play into the Visual Insights newsletter? And how do you approach design so that it gets consumed, so that it's super engaging, so that it's curiosity inducing?
Really, with the VIN, we are making sure that it is surprising and delightful. So really, like, if you think about when you're walking through a store, you know, the things that catch your eye are the things that you are surprised about or you didn't expect to see. So in the visuals for the VIN, we really make sure that we think about the concept. How can we make this different from what you would normally see? Just like when I talked about the cost of raising children, we didn't just go with something that was the same, something that you would see all the time. We put more thought into these, as Francesca talked about, not like the other lead gens and things like that are more information based. This is based on provoking emotion out of the people that are looking at the stuff. So really it's about how can you think through this in such a different way that when they open up, they're like, wow, I wouldn't have thought of doing it that way. Oh, well, you know, and then finding little, you know, nuggets in there that are like, oh, that is really interesting. So that's how the VIN is really set up to inspire and get them to really want to read through that stuff.
So, so you said something that really stood out to me. It's the words provoking emotion. That really stood out to me because that's what this whole series does. And I feel like anybody would be served extremely well if they're looking at their marketing, if they're looking at any decision in their business and asking themselves before they launch it or before they pay for something or before they pursue a service, to ask themselves, what is this for? So I know there's campaigns on our platform that are for lead gen, that are for prospect nurturing. So Francesca, I'm going to let both of you talk about this, but Francesca, I want you to tell me, like, what is the Visual Insights newsletter for through the lens of what Patrice just said with provoking emotion? Like, how does that even tie into a business goal?
Absolutely. So I think, you know, we can use it a couple different ways. You know, we can talk about it from the perspective that it is a monthly newsletter that's going to go out to your members or your clients and your prospects multiple times through the month. So they're going to be seeing those emails hit their inbox. And we're always hitting the curiosity angle and the interest angle and the subject lines to hopefully get the open. It's also going out on your social media feed over 4 weeks. So that in and of itself could be an entire month's worth of engagement content. When we talk about engagement, we're talking about staying top of mind with prospects so that they're seeing content come from you while they're sitting on your list, and hopefully getting the open and getting the click, maybe signing up to hear more, and reminding your clients and restating the value of what they're getting from you. In the Visual Insights newsletter, if we talk about the structure of it, it's got a landing page and it's got emails that point to it and social posts that point to it. And within that landing page, we have a financial lesson at the bottom. And the whole goal of that is to tie the topic together, talk about why, restate why it's important to the reader and how the advisor can help with it, whether it's the cost of raising children, planning ahead for expenses, passing down wisdom from generations, avoiding common financial mistakes that are kind of funny when we read about them with celebrities. We're always restating the value there. And each of the emails is also designed to stand alone, because we can't guarantee that someone's going to click through and read it. So we want to make sure that whatever they're reading, they're getting some value out of it. And they're thinking, this is worth my time to have opened it.
When it comes to the design mindset and designing the Visual Insights newsletter, how do you approach that differently than if you were designing a lead gen campaign?
You have to think about, like, when we think about the design, you have to think about the many angles in which people's curiosity can be piqued. Some people will be engaged and curiosity piqued through certain types of imagery, through certain types of layout, certain things that will pull them in. So that's why it's really important to have these different methods of communication with people so that they can be drawn in, so that everything can work together to hopefully draw their interest. The way that we do this through design is, in a lead gen where we know that, the subject matter of the content is important. We don't ever want creativity or the want for creativity to fight what we're trying to get through to the client. So in this aspect, in a lead gen, you want to make sure that it can still be creative, but it has to be subtle in the background so that the information gets more of the attention. In the VIN, what we do is we make sure that the concept is pushed further, because we know the imagery, the subject matter, the emotion, all those things is what's going to pull them in to keep reading. And then, so the content, we're sliding them into what we want them to see, but we're provoking them first visually. In the VIN, we provoke them more informationally in the lead gen. So that is the way that design works together. It is always a very important thing that we think about how much creative concept do we need to apply in every version of our campaigns so that it gets the right success rate, it gets the right attention to the right points.
So creativity isn't, could you say that it's on a spectrum? Like, it's not binary. It's not like, is this creative or not creative? It's like, okay, how far are we going to turn the dials on the creativity or the out there concepts?
Think of it like, what are we choosing is the creative piece. Like, people don't have to see creative as, the exact imagery. The content is also creative. There are so many pieces in there, because creative is about thinking through some kind of concept that is going to draw attention. Creative is not the fact that you chose some crazy looking imagery. So we have to really make sure that our minds are set up in a way that it's like, what is creative in that particular thing that we're doing? And then we are pushing that to the forefront of these people's minds, and then they will interact with it in a better way.
I like it. Are you both familiar with Monty Python?
Yes.
So like John Cleese, he just wrote a book, really, really short. It's like a short guide on creativity. And he has an interesting approach, because he just talked about Monty Python and how they wrote sketches. And he said creativity isn't any one thing. It's really about a new approach to solving a problem. It's solving a problem in an interesting way. And you could be creative in music, you could be creative in art, you can be creative in artistry, in comedy, and you can be creative in business too. So it's not just any one thing or any one medium, and don't confuse that for creativity. All right. So talk me through this Visual Insights newsletter. This is the issue of the cost of raising children.
So this, I love the cost of raising children, VIN. It's very near and dear to my heart, mainly because I am a mother of 3. So as soon as this content crossed my desk, I was like, oh man, this is going to have to be creatively powerful. So really, this idea was one of those in which we sat down, designers and I brainstormed all kinds of different ways we could really creatively concept an idea like this, and it was born from really thinking about each of these categories that Francesca had laid out in her content. And I was like, kids just, when I looked at that content, I was like, how much money they eat up. I was like, oh my God, I think I had like a mini heart attack when I was reading over it, because it's like, you don't think about it until you read it, right? So when I started thinking about, oh man, like kids like eating something, I was like, oh, Pac-Man. So, and then we had this whole brainstorming session about it. And, it was like, is that too out there? What do we think? And then it was like, well, this audience, we always want to keep in mind the audience. The audience is very, very familiar with this. And even across, generations. I mean, Pac-Man has stood the test of time. So it was cool to be able to try to link these two concepts of the eating the pellets. And then we had to figure out a way, well, how do we then morph this base concept into something that will be really identifiable within the content, and merge those two ideas together. And this is where we came up with this idea that the kids, as they progress, like the Pac-Man, eat through the funds. And as you go through the content, I love the execution of it so much. It turned out great.
So on one end, you got to get something off your chest as a parent. You're like, I want to articulate this feeling that I have with the way I'm approaching these kids and the way these kids are, the way it is raising them. How can I just package that up and turn it into an interesting concept?
Even though the concept is far out there, immediately you grasp the idea. These kids are eating up your money, which is at the base what it really is about. So that's how you can take like something that is, like I said, very far out there and connect it, like, because it is important. You have to connect it to the content, and it has to be easily identifiable. So, and that doesn't always work. You can't always do that. But in this situation, it really linked up really well.
So before we go through the structure of what this Visual Insights newsletter is and the financial lesson, I want to point something out. And this is something really interesting that you mentioned with creativity, is that if it was just as simple as giving people information, you could just give them a bulleted list going, hey, be prudent about your finances, plan, kids take up a lot of resources, bye. Talk to me if you have any questions. But no, that doesn't draw anybody in. You have to wrap that up in a concept that is entertaining, that is curiosity inducing, and then you deliver the medicine with that spoonful of sugar. So I know, Francesca, you're going to take us home and you're going to talk about the financial lesson and how I believe every single Visual Insights newsletter has a financial lesson. So yeah, take me through the structure of this particular Visual Insights newsletter. And that applies across the board to all Visual Insights newsletters, right? Not just this one, they're all in the same basic format.
Yeah. So whenever we take a topic, this was a topic that was requested. It came in, and someone, one of our members said, hey, I really wanted to see a Visual Insights newsletter talking about how much kids cost and how to plan for it. And so whenever we get an idea like that, we take it, we break it down, what is the idea? Who's the target audience for it? What do we need to incorporate? How can we make our little twist on it? And so, yeah, like you were saying, Angel, this could very easily be a roundup post on Forbes or CNBC where, it's very dry and, reflecting the same exact data that we have, which comes from a 2015 study. But we want to make it more entertaining. We want to make it fun. And so, we always think about headlines that are going to pull somebody in. And so the first thing we wanted to do is we wanted people to self-identify. Maybe they're a parent, maybe they're a grandparent, maybe they are someone who is raising children. And, we really want them to be able to say, yes, that's me. Let me read this. And so oftentimes we're going to ask a question, and this particular one has got kids. And then we always want to intro it in some way so that we can set up the information that we're passing on. And typically in something like this, you were going to break it down into the different categories and answer the question of why kids cost so much money. Let's break it down, based on this study. And we talk about the childcare. And so whenever we're doing this style of VIM, we're either breaking down information and presenting it in bite-sized formats. Remember that a lot of people are going to be seeing this on a mobile phone. So we want it to be super digestible, which is why we're never going to give them paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of text. We're going to make it very quickly and easy for them to just scroll through or swipe to read. And, we're always passing this information on. And this one, the designers did this amazing interactive little animation here, which I really, really love. And then we go down to the bottom and we get to the financial lesson. And each VIN has them. Sometimes it's fairly simple. Maybe we're breaking down a recent law that passed. And so the financial lesson is something related to what do you need to take on board and how can the advisor help? Sometimes with something like this, the financial lesson isn't super obvious. So we have to figure out how to tie it all together. We talk about the value. So, imagine that you're a parent and you've just finished reading this and you're just gobsmacked about how much these wonderful kids are costing you. Let's make you feel better about it. Let's talk about how your investment in your kids is yielding benefits, how you're giving your kid the best life. What do you need to know about balancing what your kid needs with what you need? And oh, by the way, I'm a financial professional. I can help.
So it wasn't all a downer. It wasn't just like, hey, you're spending a lot of money here. Haha, bye. Like you brought some positivity to this and a universal lesson for people to learn.
That's a really key point. Positivity. Regardless of what we're talking about, sometimes in financial services, you have to talk about some pretty negative things, but positivity and the power of transformation, that is really what helps people take this information on board and change their life with it.
So Patrice, were there any concepts of this particular Visual Insights newsletter that you had to scrap?
This was one of those unicorns that actually came together pretty quickly. We did go in more of a direct Pac-Man form the first time, and we did have to walk that back to kind of think through legal issues and things like that. And really, it was great because it gave birth to this even better idea in which we had to think through, oh man, so how can we wrap even that concept in the same voice that you would be able to still know that it is closely related to this Pac-Man idea.
That's great. So ideas, lessons, even a moral of a story. In marketing, storytelling is always being talked about. And really what it comes down to is, hey, I have this important idea. You want to help shift somebody's perspective. You want to influence their decisions so they make the best decisions for themselves. Let's wrap this up in a story. And although this might not have a beginning, middle, and an end, like a traditional story, this Visual Insights newsletter, there's still story going on with it because it's talking about, hey, you have kids. Here's what they consume throughout growing up. Here's what it means for you. Here's what it means for them. Here's what you need to think about. Oh, and by the way, the advisor that this is coming from, if you want to talk about this, if you want to have a conversation, which this is what all of this is about, if you want to have a conversation, get in touch with me. So what would you say then to, I had an advisor come up to me. He took a look at a few of our Visual Insights newsletters and he wrote them off. He was a little meh about it. And he said, these are just fancy newsletters. I know you have a lot that you could say about that, but let's behave ourselves. So what would you say? What would you say as a professional about that comment?
Boy, I'd say a lot of things. I'd ask the member, what do you think a newsletter is? And then I'd ask them, what's your open rate on your newsletters? Because we can stand behind our open rates. You know, the typical VIN is going to get somewhere between 25 and 30% open rates. That's average, which means we've got advisors that are getting much higher open rates. You know, other advisors are getting lower open rates. I'd ask, you know, does your typical newsletter have great emails that then click through to a super interesting landing page that restates the value of what you're offering in a super curiosity-inducing, surprising, and engaging way? Most newsletters are really boring. They're either roundups of things that the reader doesn't care about, or they're trying to do too many things at once. A lot of times they're poorly designed. Oof, I have so much more to say. What do you think, Patrice?
You may think it's fancy, we'll use the word, but really these are the types of things that provide interest, that make people want to keep reading. So I mean, it just like you said about the regular newsletters. I mean, I would say that most people probably trash newsletters. They don't care about it. They think the information is what just people just talking about themselves, or, you know, information that they really don't care about. But what we're doing here with our newsletters is we're talking about something that we know is important to you. And then not only do we know it's important to you, but we're designing it and creating it in a way that you are going to want to interact with it. You're going to want to keep reading. You're going to want to find out more. And it's also that this is different subject matter than you're usually getting, as Francesca mentioned earlier. So you know that you're going to be creating a personal connection with the people that you send this out to. They are going to feel like you care about them more, because you're not just trying to sell them something. You're not just trying to talk about yourself. You are keeping in mind what is important to them, and then providing it to them in a way that is meaningful and interesting to them. Everybody wants to be cared about. So what we're doing with these VINs is showing that care, and then, you know, you can use these other ways to follow up with, you know, also more important information. But everything works together in a system to be able to get the right people to really have them listen to what you have to say, because what you have to say is important.
So it's not the be all end all. It's connected to your strategy, and your strategy involves doing a number of different things. And the VIN, the Visual Insights newsletter, has people looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely.
And I love that, because I'm always looking forward to the next one. I'm always thinking, how are they going to outdo themselves this time? What theme, what topics are they going to go after this time? What's the newest one, since we're closing out the year? This one's a little bit different of a topic, isn't it? It's about putting 2020 in perspective. Do I have that right?
Yeah. So typically when we do our VINs, we call them what we say semi-evergreen, in the sense that we're delving into a single topic. It's frequently, you know, generally going to be something that you could use throughout the year, but we also like to do some timely ones. And the ones that we typically do at the end of the year are timely in some way. And this one's about putting 2020 in perspective. And it dives into the lessons learned. You know, it opens up by talking about what a rough year we've all had. A lot of folks have had a very rough year. If you're a parent, you know, you've got kids at home suddenly they're now doing their school from home. Maybe you've lost a job. Maybe you're worried about a job. Maybe you're worried about your parents. You know, everybody has had a different experience this year. And we don't want to be Pollyannish about it, but we do want to try to put a positive spin on it and use it to make the future stronger. So we're talking about how you learn your best lessons in adversity.
So let's get a little technical real quick. What are some advanced ways that advisors are using their Visual Insights newsletters to engage more, connect more, and maybe get a broader reach?
Absolutely. So, let's talk about some advanced use of the product. So because the VIN has a landing page, you can throw a tracking pixel. You could put Google Analytics data on it. You could throw a Facebook pixel on it. And so what that's doing, especially if you're taking the social posts and maybe you're boosting them on Facebook, is what you're able to do is you're able to get the content in front of a much broader audience of folks who are in your area and maybe part of your target market. And then if they consume the VIN, you're able to capture their information so that you can show them some of your ads later. Like let's say they're using our lead gen products, and you're able to target folks who have already consumed this VIN because they might be interested in the topic. And that's a really great way to build up a better audience, build up your traffic, and make your later advertising strategy more targeted.
There's so much design that goes into them. They're highly visual. They can be used to get interest. And because there isn't a huge conversion aspect to it, there is a conversion aspect to it where it asks for a name and email if they want to sign up and receive more. But it's not like, yo, let's have an appointment, because that would be a wrong part of the sequence. But if people pixel it and they can retarget, once they have that attention, once they do get noticed, once that prospect is a little bit warmer, then they can receive something else that is a little closer to the appointment, is a little closer to a very hardcore like business conversion metric. Is that?
Absolutely.
Am I thinking about that the right way?
Yeah, so you can think of it as just free value. One of the things that we really emphasize is before you can expect someone to put their hand up and say, hey, I'm interested in doing business with you, you got to offer them value. And one great way to offer value is free content, free information. And our VIN is a really good way to do that. If you're leveraging it on social media, you put a pixel on the landing page, you promote posts with a traffic objective, and suddenly a lot of folks are seeing it, they're able to click, go immediately there and read the content. And then you have their information, so you could retarget them later with one of our lead gen campaigns.
And this strategy isn't just limited to the digital world. You see this strategy play out everywhere. Like I'll give you a quick story. I was walking around downtown St. Augustine in the summer, and there's all these shops. Everybody had signs, there's promos, there's people outside of shops trying to drum up business, trying to get you to come in and shop their tchotchkes and souvenirs. I walked by this nondescript business suite, and there's a guy standing in front, and he goes, hey, there's a magic show going on in a few minutes. Do you want to check it out? And I was thinking, sure, I'll go enjoy air conditioning for a little bit and maybe be entertained. I walk in there, there's a crowd that had gathered. A guy starts doing these magic tricks. He opens up a wallet and it bursts into flames. He does a few card tricks. He borrows $1 from a volunteer and he makes the dollar levitate. And all the while he's talking about what product he's using to make those tricks possible. And he's making me visualize like, oh, cool, I'm going to make my friends' kids laugh, or I'm going to be at a restaurant opening up a wallet and then having the flames come out of it. He finishes the magic show. And he says, by the way, we have a special. There's buy one, get one on these flaming wallets. There's a buy one, get one on these card tricks. The products are right over there. You have people waiting over here by the cash registers. I spent $124.32 that day, and I did not expect to do that. But when you overlay that with everything you just said, they led with value. They did something that was entertaining. They did something that was engaging. They brought me in. I got interested. I started visualizing what I could do with the products that they were offering. And then they gave me a call to action. They're like, hey, you can buy this stuff right over here. So it's the same thing, really. It's a different industry, obviously different context, but it's the same thing. Lead with value. Find some way to make the basic or make the mundane, entertaining and exciting.
And show the transformation.
Right.
You walked in the door, this super ordinary dude, not very interesting. And by the end of it, you can be the dude at the bar with wallets that catch on fire.
I don't really like the way you framed that, but I would structure it a little bit differently. Like happy-go-lucky, awesome dude is walking around and he becomes even more awesome.
He becomes even more amazing through the power of magic tricks.
Anything else to share? Any parting words on design, on meaning, on making connection, Patrice?
Everything that is done in design is really a purposeful thing. It is never done just for creative sake. You know, just like the guy that referenced it was fancy. If it's fancy for a reason. If it is subtle, it's subtle for a reason. It has been highly thought about. It has been thought about why it should be the way it is, why it shouldn't be the way it isn't. Know that creative is your friend and creative works for you and not against you.